Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of Europe's most secretive and politically complex nations, Belarus. This is a country that often finds itself at the center of global controversy, yet remains shrouded in mystery for most of the world. The story of Belarus is inseparable from one man, Alexander Lukashenko. For nearly 3 decades, he has ruled this former Soviet republic with an iron grip, navigating between Moscow and the West, surviving protests, sanctions, and political isolation. But how has Lukashenko managed to stay in power for so long, and what is really happening behind the scenes in his political game? Let's break it down. To understand Lukashenko's strategy, we need to go back to 1994, when he first came to power. At the time, Belarus was struggling to find its identity after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The economy was in chaos, and people were disillusioned by corruption and uncertainty. Lukashenko, a former collective farm director, presented himself as a man of the people, simple, tough, and uncorrupted. He promised stability, order, and a return to Soviet-style security that many Belarusians still longed for. That promise struck a deep chord with citizens weary of transition and chaos, and he won the election by a landslide. But what followed was the construction of one of Europe's most enduring authoritarian regimes. From the very beginning, Lukashenko consolidated power by controlling the media, silencing the opposition, and building a political system centered entirely around himself. State-run television portrayed him as the nation's protector, while independent journalists and activists who questioned his rule faced intimidation, imprisonment, or exile. Over time, the institutions of democracy, courts, parliament, and elections were hollowed out, existing mostly to legitimize his authority. In this system, loyalty is rewarded and dissent is crushed. That's the foundation of what many call Europe's last dictatorship. But Lukashenko's rule is not just about repression, it's about survival through manipulation and balancing acts. For years, he maintained close economic ties with Russia, while carefully keeping some distance from Moscow's total control. Belarus depends heavily on Russia for energy supplies, trade, and loans. Yet Lukashenko has often tried to play both sides, using the West as leverage when Moscow pressures him, and vice versa. This geopolitical juggling act allowed him to extract billions in subsidies and maintain a stable economy, at least on the surface. However, that balance began to crumble after 2020. The year 2020 marked a turning point in Belarus's modern history. The presidential election that August was widely seen as rigged, with Lukashenko claiming an implausible victory of over 80%. The results sparked the largest protests in the nation's history. Hundreds of thousands of Belarusians took to the streets demanding change, waving the historic red and white flag that has since become a symbol of resistance. For weeks, cities were filled with chants of "Leave" and "Long live Belarus," but Lukashenko refused to step down. He unleashed security forces with brutal efficiency, detaining, beating, and torturing thousands of demonstrators. Opposition leaders were forced into exile, including Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, who many believe was the true winner of that election. After the 2020 uprising, Lukashenko's dependence on Vladimir Putin deepened, facing international isolation and sanctions from the EU and the US. He turned entirely to Moscow for support. Russia provided money, security assistance, and political backing in exchange for greater control over Belarus's military and foreign policy. Many analysts believe this marked the beginning of Belarus losing its sovereignty bit by bit. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Belarus played a critical role, allowing Russian troops to use its territory as a launching pad for attacks on Kyiv. This move made Belarus a de facto participant in the war, even though Lukashenko tried to claim that his country wasn't directly involved. It was a dangerous game of loyalty and self-preservation, as Lukashenko knew that betraying Putin could mean his own downfall. Yet, Lukashenko's strategy has always been about maintaining power at any cost. Domestically, he has built a culture of fear and dependence. State propaganda constantly reminds citizens that without him, Belarus would descend into chaos or fall prey to foreign influence. The economy remains heavily state-controlled, ensuring that the government decides who thrives and who fails. Meanwhile, the security apparatus from the KGB to riot police operates with near-total impunity. Political prisoners remain behind bars, and independent voices are still silenced. But beneath this facade of control lies a growing tension. The younger generation of Belarusians, connected to the outside world through the internet and social media, is no longer easily swayed by state narratives. They dream of democracy, open borders, and freedom ideals that clash directly with Lukashenko's Soviet-style authoritarianism. In recent years, Lukashenko has tried to reinvent his image on the world stage, portraying himself as a mediator and a protector of Belarusian sovereignty. He's attempted to host peace talks, made bold statements about resisting foreign pressure, and even offered to mediate the Ukraine conflict, all while keeping his grip tight at home. It's a political performance designed to show strength and independence, but the reality tells a different story. Belarus remains under heavy sanctions, its economy is stagnating, and its international reputation is tarnished. More and more Belarusians are leaving the country in search of better lives abroad, while those who remain face an uncertain future. What makes Lukashenko's political game fascinating is how it blends calculation with unpredictability. He often uses shock tactics, arresting opposition figures one moment, releasing them the next, or making surprising policy shifts to confuse both allies and enemies. This unpredictability keeps everyone guessing and prevents potential rivals from organizing effectively. But as he grows older, questions arise about succession and stability. Who will take over when Lukashenko is gone? Will the system he built survive without him, or will it collapse under the weight of decades of repression and fear? Today, Belarus stands at a crossroads. On one hand, it remains a tightly controlled state where the government dictates nearly every aspect of life. On the other, there's a silent but growing resistance, a new generation unwilling to accept dictatorship as destiny. Underground movements, exiled opposition groups, and digital activism continue to challenge Lukashenko's narrative. The regime may still be in power, but its foundation is showing cracks. As global tensions rise, Lukashenko's future depends on his ability to keep balancing between loyalty to Moscow and maintaining a semblance of sovereignty. He plays the role of a political survivor, but every move he makes carries risk. Too much dependence on Russia could make Belarus a puppet state. Too much defiance could lead to his downfall. It's a dangerous tightrope act, one that has defined his career for over 30 years. In the end, Lukashenko's political game is not just about control, it's about endurance, manipulation, and survival. He's mastered the art of staying relevant in a world that keeps changing around him. But no leader can rule forever, and the winds of change may yet reach Belarus. Whether those winds bring freedom or further repression depends on what happens next, both in Minsk and beyond. Thank you for watching. If you found this deep dive into Belarus's political landscape insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on global affairs and political power plays happening around the world.